Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. Today, I welcome my good friend Cindy to the show, where we're going to be talking about becoming unstuck, working through trauma, and living a more victorious life. So just a quick introduction to Cindy. So Cindy is the founder of Cindy Gould International and Create Your Victorious Life. Cindy is a joy catalyst, your victorious life strategist and certified presenter and coach with expertise in many areas, including fear mitigation, fear obliteration, and fear replacement. She's the perfect person to help you to quit tripping over your traumas, to get unstuck, and to have breakthroughs and claim in every area of your life. Really excited to have you on the show today, Cindy, and for our conversation. So, yeah, first of all, be really interesting to know for the listener in particular. I know you obviously. What actually got you into this area of fulfilling work that you're doing now?
Wow. So, golly. So in April of 2021, prior to that, of course, I knew, who Tony Robbins is and Joseph McClendon III, who both you and I love.
Yeah.
And he's our mentor. And I joined the Neuroencoding Institute and became a founding member of that, as well as with the Dr. Amen, Brain Revolution in the beginning of April. Well, after 2 weeks later, I actually moved out of my home and separated from my marriage and then moved forward with the divorce thing. During that time in the summer, so that was in April, towards the summer, my son, one of my children, Mana, he became sick at the end of July. Now, he had never really been sick a day in his life that I'm aware of. No colds, no anything. 36 years old, beautiful marriage, spectacular family, beautiful, 5 beautiful babies, children, and teenagers down to, at the time, I think Benjamin was 3 or 2. He was 2. And on August 7th, 2021, he moved back home to heaven and he left. And honestly, it was interesting because when I had moved out of my home, I actually got to live with my son and his family. Now, I mean, who knew, right? That was in April, that in August, that he wouldn't be here anymore. So as a mama, that's such a tender mercy for me. I got to see him be a dad and a father and a husband. And we just had a blast. We sang and played games and ate and had just, a beautiful time for my healing and also to spend that precious time with him. And then for him to, pass away. So after Mana, though, then there were, between that time frame and March of 2022, I had a total of 8 loved ones all move back home to heaven, plus my divorce was final. And what that actually did for me, because I had many options, right? Opportunities to be stuck and talk about trauma, right? One of them was also my father, and 2 of them were 2 of my best friends of one over 20 years. And all unexpected. Not anybody was like, been sick for a long time and that kind of thing. And so one day I was thinking about like all the things that they did in their life. And then I came across this research as I was just kind of diving into trying to heal and process through some of this stuff. And there's many, many, many studies, and most of them, even Success Magazine, say that, out of all the people that come to this earth, about between 92 to 98% of the people will not stay in alignment with their assignment. They won't do what they were purposed to do. They won't live out their wildest dreams. They don't create that wildest, that life and that vision because they're afraid. Literally, they get stuck in fear and they don't do it. And some people, and that doesn't mean they don't have great lives or whatever, but if you know that you've got this spectacular life you can have, and there's this thing that's holding you back because you're afraid, wouldn't you want to know what that spectacular thing is? And so when I got that research, I started thinking about all my loved ones. And with the exception of one person, I would say they left here not having fulfilled their dreams. Like my son, they're only 36, of course, and wanted this. there were a lot of things he still wanted to do, right? Especially as a husband and a father, and businesses he wanted to build. And so that became my why. It's like, well, why are people not doing that then? And that literally is what birthed where I'm at right now. It's just like, okay, let's do it. Let's go. Let's go. What do you have to do to not be afraid, or to do it anyway and to get over yourself? Right.
Now, it's a powerful story. You got, you got me. It definitely got to be there. Like this whole, we've really, really got to make the most of the time and be inspired to and live from that inspiration of what you really want to do. But I think you said fear is the thing that holds quite a lot of us back. And that's, I remember Tony Robbins saying it several times. He goes, what's the one thing? It's a very simple concept. It's fear. That's what he said. That's the one thing that holds people back. And for me personally, how I've experienced, but I've also observed it rather, when I've been coaching or mentoring other people, speaking with them. It's sometimes, it's not even like conscious, but it's like subconscious, and you're not even noticing you're doing certain feelings, or there's these excuses or certain words you come up with or reasons you can't do something, which sound very logical and legitimate, because I know I've definitely had that in my head, and I've heard it from other people as well. I don't know if it looks like you relate to what I'm saying, Cindy, that sometimes, yeah. Does that sound true to you as well?
My goodness, yes. I mean, how many things do we make excuses and we call them reasons why we can't do something, or why we're not doing something? And at the end of the day, it's just things that we're afraid of. It's whether it's even, think of all the times that you hesitated to do something, or you procrastinated doing it. And even think when you were in school, were you the guy that slammed the night before trying to cram everything in because you had the test the next day and you had all this time to do it, or the book report or the other thing, or even fear of success or failure, or, the ever so popular fear of rejection, because everything boils down to being rejected. We, as human beings, of course, we want to be loved. Why wouldn't I love you? Why wouldn't you love me? Of course, we want to be loved. And we hesitate to do things because we're so afraid that people won't love us. They won't high five us at the end of the day, or they're going to judge us, which again goes back to rejection, right? No matter what, anything, if you really look at all the fears that people have, it all boils down to that one primary color, right? Of rejection, of not being loved. And what's interesting is that, like, even think about the way that we compensate. Like, have you ever injured yourself? Maybe, you need to go to the chiropractor, your back is hurting, and then, you just allow yourself to be too busy because it's a hassle. It's across town. You have to make the appointment, all that stuff, or you don't want to spend the money, whatever it is. So then you start to compensate by sitting a certain way, walking a certain way, so you don't feel that pain as much, right? And then now you, Mr. 10K, killing it with the 75 hard, then all of a sudden you're feeling that ache and pain, and you have to address it because it's too much in your face. You can hardly walk because of it, right? But how much did you compensate to delay it? Does that make sense? Or have you had that experience in your life?
Not personally with an injury, but I know it's, I've seen it, I've observed it so many times, just like I'm okay. I don't need to go to the doctor, or like, even if it's an illness, like, I don't want to go to the doctor, or, I don't want to go to the physiotherapist for the appointment and things like that. So yeah, I've seen it so many times.
Like, I even say things like one of the things I was sharing with a group that I'm coaching is like, how many times, and I know some of your listeners are going to have experienced this, you maybe even yourself, have you like washed a load of clothes, right? And then 2 days later, you're like, oh, crud, you have to wash it again because you didn't take it from there to put it in the dryer. And then when it gets in the dryer, how many times do you keep pushing the button so that it gets the wrinkles out because you keep forgetting? And then you finally get it to the couch. It doesn't even get hung up because you end up dressing yourself all week from the pile that's on the couch. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know if you've ever had that experience. I know I have. I know lots of people who have. And that's just kind of how it's the same thing. We just keep delaying things because sometimes that pain of just getting it done, we have this delusion in our head that it's better to just keep pushing the button right? The
Mm,
pause button. I'm not going to go out and I'm not going to create that life because that's scary, right? I mean, doing your laundry isn't scary, but sometimes you just let it drag
it is.
until, or maybe it is doing your laundry, Johnny. I don't know, but
It is.
or your dishes, right? Yeah.
Oh, and you just remind, well, when you were talking there, or like, I pointed out, I was thinking about the delay of fear, but I was also thinking about the fact I still got to do my ironing later. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I know. And sometimes it just doesn't work if you just stick it in the dryer. You literally have to get the iron out and the spray starch and right to do it right and to do it well.
Yeah. Out of all my lovely skill sets in life, I don't think ironing is up there, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll get. But
But
yeah,
it
it's
doesn't
definitely
take you
something
2
I've got to
minutes.
do tonight. Thanks for reminding me. Anyway, on so it's a good like demonstration to talk about, putting things off like we do in life with our fears when we're masking them a little bit and like putting things off. So thanks for that, Cindy. With fear though, like obviously you're a coach and this is the value of a coach, as opposed to just, getting a bunch of trying to look at free resources online and trying to, figure it out yourself. But that's what I always find with addressing my fears. But what would you say to like, if you could, I know it's probably quite a general question, but someone who's right, they do know what they want to do or move towards it, but they're so stuck in that fear. Is there any like first steps or step that they could take really that has helped you in the past or
One of the
someone
things
you know?
really, yeah, thanks for that question. One of the things that really helps me is to get definitively clear on what I really want.
Oh, love it.
I mean, laser focused, 100% clear, crystal clear on what I really want, not on what I don't want, on what I do want.
Yeah.
Right. And then what I do is I know a lot of people, they have vision boards and they have other things like that. And I used to, I mean, I've taught vision board classes. What I started doing is I started having a gratitude board. And I really am meaning it's December 31st, like today is July 3rd, right? 2023. My gratitude board is filled with, it's December 31st. I'm so grateful I slayed all this stuff this year. Look at what we did, right? And so I anchor myself into that and I see it and I make sure that that happens. And I'll give you an example. And I didn't realize how really powerful this was until I walked through some of the things that I shared with you. So I was getting some things out of storage. And prior in 2020, in the fall of 2020, I started to put together my vision board, right? Not gratitude board, my vision board for 2021, not knowing I was going to move out, not knowing I was going to have the year that I had. And I put, places I wanted to travel, all these different things, including figuring out a way to work with Joseph McClendon III, like all that. Okay. I know. Check it out. This is crazy. And Dr. Amen. So I forgot about that. But what I had done in the fall is that's when I made a shift of, hey, you know what? If I really want this to be done, I have to see it is already done. Because what happens when you do that is when you're that crystal clear and you sit, and I like to meditate, of course, and I pray, I'm anchored in that. And so I literally sit and I do that and I see it is done. Well, then I sit and ask, well, then how did I do it? And I see the specific steps that it took to have it done so that it gives me a pathway to walk it out. Am I making sense? Does that make sense? Yeah. So I'm doing like reverse engineering it. Right.
Okay. Yeah. But getting clear on the end, really, or that point where you want. Okay.
Getting super clear. So I'm moving my stuff from storage way after I already moved out, all this stuff. And there's some stuff I have in storage. And I come across that board. Holy smokes. I looked at the board and the majority of that stuff was accomplished. I didn't even remember that I had it on the board. Like I had anchored it in so strong. Places I was going to travel, all that stuff, Joseph McClendon, all of it was accomplished on there. The majority of everything was so cool. That's how powerful it is. Because what happens is our thoughts are electric, our hearts are magnetic. So when you think a thought and you create it. Cause like we know the whole, as we think, right? So we feel. That's that connection. As we feel, so we do. As we do, so we have. So when you think a thought, like in my favorite book, it says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And when you think that, because your heart has a brain, it's a magnetic, and it starts to create that, and it brings towards you, magnetize towards you, the things that you're thinking about. It's insane. I mean, test it out. I already know you know how to do this. So I invite your audience to test it out because it's pretty cool. What happens is then you anchor all of that in why you want to do it. Like it's great, and it doesn't matter what it is, whatever you want to do, anchor it in why, and make that so strong within you, just like you have to do it, and watch it, everything just fall into place as it just starts to come to you. And then your fear just is like, it's interesting how that will be obliterated when you actually anchor that why in with already seeing it done. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Love it. Yeah, getting crystal clear. And I love I love the word magnetism. I have my own routine, and tell you what, Cindy, in the last I've been really hitting this routine hard in the last 3 weeks, like doing it 5 times a day, like one of Joseph's thing. And it's like involves a stop technique. It's jumping on my rebounder, shouting what I want, that, the identity statement and all that kind of thing. And, doing a bit of that before, but when you really intensify it, like just start making, this is just a bit of a guidance for the audience as well. Just start keeping a log of what shows up in your life as well, because then you show yourself that actually things are in motion. And the fact you had that vision board or that gratitude board, and then at the end you actually came back and you're like, oh wow, like meeting Joseph, working with Joseph McClendon, these places I traveled to, it's happened. Yeah, I definitely resonate with that magnetism and creating those thoughts as much as possible. And that's a great one for the fear, because I often found, and sometimes it's definitely harder at other times. And we're not saying like there's never going to be points when you're going to be a little bit fearful, there's going to be negativity popping up, but it's like when it's always focusing on the don't wants and that fear more, it gets worse. I personally found anyway. So,
right. I totally agree. It's interesting because I literally, from where I'm sitting right now, I can see my rebounder. I do the exact same thing. I have my rebounder right there, and I do the same identity statement, all of those things, and multiple times a day, because it literally anchors in that frequency so that you can create the things. And doing like the stop technique, as you shared, it actually helps you to mitigate that fear, because you're already encoding your brain to be at a certain frequency. So if that fear, something that you were afraid of before, pops up, chances are it'll even bounce off of you. I mean, it's pretty cool. And when you can see your growth, like, have you seen your growth with things that might have freaked you out a while, maybe 6 months ago, and now you're like, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
It's so cool. Think about where you were before you started running. Like, I mean, because you and I had a conversation, and I've been following the creation of your abs, and along with a lot of the people who love you, we were all like, okay, Johnny, but it's so cool to watch, because it's literally right before our eyes that you're doing that, and you've been vigilant. Wouldn't you say that your consistency is one of the most important things that have made that happen?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And it's a system as well, not willpower. It's a system. It's about systematizing it that we're keen on. So yeah, that's a good one. So yeah, Cindy, wanted to ask you a little bit about, right, we're focusing on like what we want. I always emphasize this is pretty on quite a lot of my solo episodes. So we always start with what you want, and then people tell you what they don't want. This is all about what you want. And saying, I don't want to be stuck in this relationship or job is not what you want. That's what you don't want. It's like, well, what do you want? It might take a bit of time. Now, for the individual, a big challenge for, and definitely being me again in the past, and now and then can catch myself in it and snap out of it, a big challenge has been overthinking and being like, what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? I'm a bit stuck. Like, how, I mean, from your experience, from what you've done personally, or maybe you've coached someone through this, if someone's really in that overthinking state of where they want to go next or what do they want to do, how can they take some steps to maybe unravel that a little bit?
I would say even one of the things you said a minute ago, when you said, I don't want to be stuck in this relationship. When I was really in the thick of things before I moved out, when I created that board in the fall, what I wrote out was everything I wanted. What I wanted in relationship, how I wanted to love, how I wanted to be loved, all the things that mattered to me, my values. And I got out of my head, because it's so easy. Like how many conversations, right? We have 70,000 thoughts that go through our brain every day. And most of them, 90, I think, % of them aren't even new thoughts. It's the same stuff. Like how much space do you rent in your brain for that same conversation of, I don't want this, I don't want that. And you may not say it in those words. You're not speaking and declaring what you do want though, right? So what happened for me is I really anchored in that energy of what I really wanted. And every time a thought would come in about what I didn't want, because I was in a situation where things were happening that I didn't want, I would literally put my whole being into what I wanted. And I would see myself in it. I would eat it. I would be about it. Every single thing and eventually what ended up happening is the things that I didn't want anymore were the things that were no longer a part of my life, the things that were hurtful or other things, right? And what really happened is, and this is what I would share with you, Johnny, is that, we say often, Tony has said this, I think, and Joseph, of course, when you stay in your head, you're dead. Well, what I would say is, yeah, and when you get in your heart, you're smart. And that's where you have to be, right? Because that's where you are. That's where you are. This is just a bunch of everything that we process and we see and we know, or we don't know. But here is really, that's your command center, right? And so when you really get deep in your heart and you get anchored into what you really want, when you're not willing to compromise and when you're willing to really show up for you, because at the end of the day, it boils down to, and I have a good, precious, good friend, Donna Izzard, and she said to me, Cindy, are you going to show up for you? And like, she's like Harlem girl, like in your face. She always says I'm the DI straight up, no chaser. Because that's, if you imagine that, she's like, are you going to show up for you? You better show up for you. Well, it's the same thing, right? And I say that to everybody listening. At what point are you just going to show up for you? And because it's your life, this is it. It's yours. It's all yours. Every bit of it. No matter what happened to you, it happened for you, right? As we know, how can you take that and look for a treasure and then grow from that? And how is that going to get you to the place of your joy, to the place of where you have victory in every area of your life? Because it really boils down to, what do you really want? Right?
What do you want? I think there's a key theme in this episode, that it comes back to what do you want, and ultimately living in your heart. I'm glad you brought up the heart as well. Like, so many times in my life I've like disconnected it, and I'm quite like a logical, right, dude, is analytical, and it can get a bit chaotic sometimes, but then it's coming back into the heart and the body. It's sometimes so like such a beautiful place that it brings me to tears, and it's so refreshing when you're just like really honest with stuff or have that heartfelt conversation with another person. So yeah, thanks for sharing that one.
Absolutely. It's interesting because when you said tears and having the heartfelt conversation, so without getting emotional, you do the mirror exercise, correct?
Yeah.
Where you look in the mirror and you talk to Johnny, right?
Yeah.
So one day I was really having a rough day. I was missing my son. I was missing my dad. I mean, I got to talk to my dad, I would say at least once or twice a day, almost every day for 30 years. He just one day started calling all of us every day, and it was just, and I missed that, and I was just having a rough day. And so I forced myself, to get in the mirror and to talk to me. And as I'm looking at myself as deeply in my eyes as I can. And you know how hard that is. Sometimes you look away, you don't, right? Especially when you first start doing that. I was crying. And for the first time, I would say in forever, I actually like fell in love with me, thinking, I love this girl. Like, I love this woman. Look at, I understood my tears. Like, it was such a profound thing for me that I just wanted to scoop me up and love me. And it was this big, it was like a defining moment for me. Like, oh my gosh, I have this much time here. Let's go. And it was where I was able to make a shift to just love and to understand that these are like real things that happen in real life that are very painful, right? I mean, just whatever your own hurts are and things that you've had, or any loss or traumas that you've had. And at the same time, to show up for me. And I had a conversation. What do you really want? Like, what do you really want? And how can you use this to get to what you really, or where you really want to be? And how do you be in alignment with your assignment and do what God's purposed you to do? And when you're not in alignment. I mean, like, if you go look at the post I made a couple of days ago, it's pretty, when it's kind of like when you, like in the US, when you're driving on the highway, if you go off a little bit, there's these bumps and it's like, da, 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 and like get back on. Well, when you're not in alignment and you're in the wrong lane, it's like you're on those bumps the whole time. Your spirit knows, you still keep pushing through because you're hard head Fred. You don't want to get off the freeway. You just want to keep going and you're afraid or whatever. When you get to a certain point and you get over that and you get over yourself and you have that mirror moment, it's like, wow, it's so wild how I wake up every day stoked. Like, and that doesn't mean like yesterday I was crying because I missed my boy. I mean, I have those moments, but it's like, if you've ever been to Hawaii, it could be sunshiny and then all of a sudden there's this mist of rain and then it's still shiny. It's like that for me now. It doesn't mean that. And some days it pours and other days, and it's for moments, right? And what I do in those moments is I allow myself to feel that. And then I instantly, like, I shift that tide to everything I'm grateful for and getting right back in. Not that I allow myself to grieve because that's important, but I shift into that other spot on purpose so that I can keep moving forward and I don't get stuck there, because that's how you get stuck, by doing all that stuff. And what's so cool is in that moment, when I had that mirror moment, I wake up now, like, I'm grateful. Like, I literally, thanks toothbrush. I'm glad I have a toothbrush, I'm glad I have toothpaste. I'm so grateful for the bagels or whatever it is, I'm so thrilled to have coffee, right? When you look at things that way, what happens is everything you love, you get more of. Everything you're grateful for, it's like a deluge, right? I mean, have you noticed that, like, for yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I'll tell you one thing I've noticed when it can be harder for me personally to practice gratitude at some times, but it's like when I'm in that moment, really allow myself to do, have those deep breaths and be in the moment, not in your phone, not on the like laptop all the time. And maybe after like clearing stuff out, because I do breath work weekly, a deeper session and things like that. It's like in those moments, you just want to bring in so many good things. And yeah, just like looking around and try to stay away from technology for a little bit, although obviously admittedly I'm on there creating content a lot. But when you get those present moments, and then you can just appreciate and just look around, which a lot of us don't. And I've been so guilty of this in my life. It's just, wow, you start getting excited by, oh, look, even there's the harbor side by me and things like that. Yeah, definitely.
Well, we get like an autopilot, right? And
Yeah.
then, like, how many times have you had like all your sales calls and then you're creating your content and you're like, holy cow, it's already midnight, right? And you were
All
there,
the time.
like, you barely moved all day, right? You just like one thing after another. Well, what I did was I thought, well, I'm here. Like, I'm tangibly on this earth right now. I get to do whatever I want. Well, what do you want to do? And let's do it. And don't make it like this, like worry about how you're going to get there. Like, okay, that's what I want. Okay, let's go. So, you know, even down to like our coaching and the things that you and I do, or even being here on the podcast with you. And I mean, you're in the UK and I'm, you know, in the US, and look at this technology that we have that we get to be on and, you know, and do all these things. It's like, how cool is that? And we literally get to share energy. We get to exchange energy, thoughts, concepts, love, kindness, grace, you know, and it's pretty stinking cool, this life we have, right? I mean, I'm just like excited about it, aren't you?
Oh
As
yeah.
you're running
Yeah,
down the
totally. Yeah, we definitely need more of you in the world as well, Cindy. It's contagious, your amazing energy and joy you bring. So I'm really glad we could bring you on today. So Cindy, we could, to be honest, I want to go on for another hour talking to you. And we could go into more deep depth of some of the things we've covered today. But just before we wrap up today, is there any final points or point that you'd like to leave us with? And also, where can the listener find more from you and your work?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it all boils down to what's in your heart. What do you believe in your heart? And I really want everybody who's listening to really examine that. Like, what do you have to believe to create your victorious life? What do you have to believe about yourself, about the world around you, and whatever that is, figure that out and make that happen, you know? And you can find me, you know, anybody that wants to reach out to me, createyourvictoriouslife.com is one spot. You can schedule a call with me if you want to. I have of course, my TV show, Create Your Victorious Life, which is on Zingo TV, channels 250 and 251. It's every Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific, which is pretty fun. Thanks to you, of course, I'll be launching my podcast this month, and it's 15 Minutes to Victory, which stay tuned for that. You can find me, Cindy Gould, on Facebook, or victorious_living_with_Cindy, because that's Instagram, of course. Any way you want, just reach out to me. I'm happy to help.
Awesome.
And thank you for having me.
Awesome, Cindy. Yeah, big thank you for coming on. We'll be sure to link that information below as well in the description. So a big thank you once again, Cindy, for coming on today and sharing everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember, you are in control of your own self-esteem and confidence.